guilt. We've all felt it. Sometimes it's a struggle. And if you're one of the people who struggles with guilt and how to release it, this is exactly where you want to be. I am welcoming a beautiful guest to talk about all things related to guilt and talk us through how we can begin to take the steps to release it, to live a more peaceful, I imagine, life. So here we are. Welcome, Philomena O'Reilly.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. This is a topic that is like so close to my heart. I've lived it for a long time and working with women in their 30s, like it's a real thing. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it and chat about it and yeah, let people know that they can let themselves off the hook with a lot of it.
And thank you for being here. It's an important topic. It's something that I personally don't struggle with, but I see it in my family, kind of like a generational, I want to almost call it curse of feeling guilty and not being able to truly do what you want because of the guilt of how others will perceive you or how you'll come off for so many reasons. So I think this is also something that we can help people with when it comes to yourself in terms of like the decisions you make, but also when it comes to your family, your friends, if we have people pleasers here, right? So it's all related. And so tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to discover this topic and how you've used the tools that you're going to share with us for yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So basically, I had no issue with age or where I was in life up until like the day of my 30th birthday party. We had a party planned. I was so excited. And I woke up on the morning and like it was like my world was crashing down. I wasn't where I was supposed to be in life. I was giving myself such a hard time. I was back living with my parents. I was overweight. I was in a job I hated. And like it was like my world was falling apart. Like it was just like, do you know, people say that midlife crisis or that like breakdown. I didn't think it was gonna happen, but it did.
And it
So
snuck up on you.
yeah, oh my God, it really did sneak up on me. So I was very lucky. I had like a really supportive family around me. I went to the party, I had an amazing time. A lot of people showed up and it was great. But I knew I was in that place where I had to kind of like look at my life, what was making me happy, what wasn't, and kind of reevaluate and basically see what was causing the problems of why I wasn't moving or like why I wasn't able to change career or chasing things and all that kind of stuff. So I went through a whole process in my 30s. I don't have children, I'm 38, and sometimes guilt came into that a bit for me because obviously with my parents giving them a grandchild as well, that was something that like weighed on me. I didn't know if I wanted to have kids, but that guilt that came with that. And my parents are like so supportive of me and like really easygoing and stuff. It wasn't coming from them, it was from myself the guilt of not having my own home and stuff, you know, being back there, being the burden in inverted commas. I know some people are listening to this so they can't see me talk. But yeah, the burden in inverted commas of being back home, so putting that pressure on my family as well. Being in the job that I didn't really like, you know, just to have a status or have like the career. So there was a lot of guilt coming from me from every place. And I done a lot of work on myself. I done a lot of like self-discovery. I done therapy for years. I've only actually just finished with my therapist. She's taken some time off, but I'd recommend that to everybody. We all have past trauma. I done a lot of like energy work, Reiki and stuff like that. Self-care courses. Amazing one I did actually quite local to me in Dublin. And I also discovered coaching and fell onto that by accident, to be honest with you. And it was just amazing. It opened my whole world to everything. It was like reevaluating my life for me. And that's why I actually got into coaching myself because it was so transformational for me to actually take my life back and remove some of that guilt that yeah I just wanted to go on and help other people because I'd spent so long trying to like get rid of that and find the life that I wanted to live that I'm trying to like short term it for people that they don't have to go through like nearly 8 years before they get there. That's a little bit about myself. Obviously, I have a lot to talk about guilt in different areas, but Sabrina, I don't know if you want me to discuss a little bit more about myself or is that enough?
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing. I can definitely relate to one of the first things you said about the guilt around not having a child, but more for your parents than yourself. So, are you an only child?
No, I'm not actually. I'm not. No.
Okay, because I'm an only child, and for me, I've chosen not to have children. It just didn't happen, and I'm okay with it. I've made peace with it. But the one thing that, if I can say, I might feel a little guilty about is not giving my parents a grandchild.
Yeah.
Because on top of it, I'm an only child. So it's kind of like I feel bad that I'm not able to give them that experience. But at the same time, then I have to remember that it is my life. I have to live for me and do what's right for me and not live for other people.
Exactly. My sister, she chose not to have children. She's moved abroad and she's ha has her own business over there and she's thriving over there. And it's just something that doesn't fit into her life. So she had made that decision earlier on in life. Whereas where I was, Sabrina, I was still weighing up the pros and cons of me having a child. But at this time, I was actually single when I was having this little meltdown, you know. So it just added to the guilt and the pressure of something wrong with me and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, not an only child, but still felt the pressure.
Yeah, and we feel the pressure in so many different ways. For me, it's also the way that I see society, right? We're conditioned to follow a path. And I talk about this a
Mhm.
lot because I think the true beauty in discovering our own journey is where we can really be aligned with our purpose, aligned with our values, and really follow that integrity within us. There's something so special when you're able to say, okay, this is what everybody else is doing, but what do I want to do? What do I truly want? And when that happens, there will be guilt that comes up because we're conditioned to follow that path or what will others think. So, can you maybe discuss a little bit about the types of guilt or for you, what that looks and feels like?
100%. Like many women, like we all feel the guilt over not checking the boxes that society like expects from us, like the marriage, the kids, the career, the home ownership. And it's just naming like a little few of them. But these timelines, I feel, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me, like they're completely outdated. And everyone's path nowadays, they look completely different. So the guilt often stems from that societal conditioning and rather than personal failure, you know, it's like what society puts on us. And like women in their 30s, like as regards career, for example, the career versus family dynamic, probably that's probably the one to look at where like they often feel torn between pursuing like the thriving career and starting or prioritizing a family, you know. But it's okay to want both, neither or one at different times. Like balance isn't about perfection, but aligning with your personal values. So just because you want to go after that promotion at work, it's going to take a little bit more effort, but doesn't mean that you're neglecting your family for want of another sense, or the fact that like all the after school curriculums, but you might need to work overtime. If you delegate that to someone else, doesn't make you a bad mother just because you want to do better at work, you know? So it is about balance and about your values and what's okay for you. Like that's just one aspect. Like there's
Mhm.
also guilt over the financial independence. I know like in Ireland here, there's a complete housing crisis, and like we've so many homeless people, and so difficult to get a mortgage, so difficult to buy a house at the moment. A lot of people are back living with their parents. Um, I'm renting an apartment at the moment. I don't own my home, but even to get like a rental property, I mean, you're queuing up to try get in to look at the place, and then you're up against people that are offering cash or like 5 months in advance or something like that. It's crazy over here. So the guilt of like I said earlier, being that burden, especially a bit later on in life, but the guilt is not, it shouldn't be there because it's out of your control a lot of the time. I'm speaking obviously for here in Dublin in Ireland. Um, so like that financial independence like will come from that. And then like probably have previous like student loans because you're trying to get your career up and running as well, or the career path is taking a little bit longer to get there to get that, I don't know, promotion or salary increase just so you can get a higher mortgage so you can actually get on the property ladder, you know? And then like women with the children situation, I know we touched on this earlier on, but women without kids often feel judged or guilty for waiting or not wanting them at all. We discussed that, you know, while mothers feel guilty for not doing enough. So it's almost like we can't win sometimes because no matter what situation we're in, we're putting that guilt on ourselves. But like just to acknowledge how women like they're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And if we can look at that, like reframing that guilt as proof that they care deeply about what they're doing, either way, whether they have the child or they don't have the child, they care about what they're doing. That's like a huge reframe to look at that, you know? Like there's so many topics coming to me. We have
Yeah.
loads, like, because a lot of this comes up all of the time, you know. Like, comparison is like a huge thing that we put guilt on, like social media. It's a godsend in one sense and it's a curse in the other sense because we're mindlessly scrolling, but all that kind of stuff is going into our subconscious. So we're feeling guilty if we're not eating right because we don't look like a certain person online. Um, guilty for not doing the exercise if we're following PTs or like fitness journeys or any of that kind of stuff as well. So just to push and let everybody like let this sink in that the stuff that we see on social media, we're only seeing the highlight reels. We're only seeing the perfect lives because that's all people want you to see. Like you don't, the person with the six pack that you're feeling guilty because you didn't go to the gym to get that six pack, they're probably spending hours and hours and hours in the gym a day while you're probably like looking after your family or like working your ass off at a different career that you chose, you know? And it's
Mhm.
like it's not real life, like the Instagram and the TikTok and Facebook, they're not real life. It's like I strongly recommend a lot of people if they're falling into that constant like comparison, guilt for not having these perfect lives. Like take the social media detox, even for 24 hours now this time, because even myself, like we have our phones glued to our hands and we're mindlessly scrolling, but you've no idea how much your subconscious actually picks up in those times. Like you're not registering it because we like obviously distort so much stuff that we actually see with our subconscious, but it's actually in there filed away for you, a tool to beat yourself up with later when you're feeling a little bit down. And like that guilt shouldn't be real because what you're seeing isn't real, you know?
Absolutely. Let's go back to that beautiful reframe that you offered us of looking at guilt as you actually caring about something, right? You're caring enough to worry. What would be the correct term to use? Is it worry?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah, I would say worry or feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It pretty much sums it up. Yes. But if we could look at it, and maybe this is a perfect opportunity to talk about what we can start doing to help ourselves move through the guilt and things that you've done and things that you help your coaching clients go through as well. How can we start to, I assume first step is awareness. How can we start to see where that guilt is living? And then the reframe. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So what I would usually do is like if you think of the topics that you're feeling guilty or like comparing yourself to other people, comparing despair and all those kind of things. First, I like to let people recognize whose voice it is they're hearing. Like, is it just general? Is it like a parent? Is it a friend? Is it a family member? Is it yourself? And acknowledge what that actually is. For the I'm not smart enough to do X, like it's to reframe that to say, I am clever and I have years of experience in doing this, you know, or
Mhm.
I'm not good enough, I'm doing my best and that's enough for now. You know, it's just kind of reframing what the voice is actually saying to you. Listen to it because sometimes it's so loud and it's chattering so many things at once that we can't actually hear it. And just to touch on that, it's actually just our subconscious actually trying to keep us safe because like a lot of the guilt and stuff comes from fear because we're afraid to take a certain step forward in things. So we sit in the guilt rather than actually take the action to do something about something. And the fear and the judgment and the guilt all comes from our subconscious trying to protect us. So once we rewire it and try to do that reframe and just word it a little bit more positively, that feels comfortable for you. It will feel slightly uncomfortable at the start, but the more you say it to yourself, or in the form of affirmations or like journaling or things like that, it will start to get that little bit easier. It feels like you're telling yourself lies sometimes when you're doing this reframe or you're speaking in a different way because it's uncomfortable because it doesn't feel like you're speaking your truth. It's like a muscle. I spoke about the gym. I'm using this as a reference again, Sabrina, because we go to the gym and we're not going to have muscle or six pack overnight. one session is not going to make us build that up. It's repetition and consistency. And it's the same with self-care and like loving ourselves and getting ourselves in a mentally growth mindset place. That's when we can actually grow and move on from like the stuff that we're working through from previous.
It's all about the mindset, right? And it's the power of our thoughts, which I talk a lot about on this show, and how to reframe those limiting beliefs. Because in a sense, you can view the guilt as a limiting belief because it's holding you back. You're believing something that is preventing you from moving forward. And I love that you said it is a form of keeping you safe because there's some fear there, whether it be fear of judgment, fear of disappointment, fear of just actually doing something new, the discomfort of stepping out of your comfort zone. So I think that step one is important. And thank you for sharing. It's just that awareness around why is the guilt there? And whose is it? I like that too, because sometimes it's not ours, but we take it on.
Yeah. It's something I've had. Well, I've heard of clients. A friend of mine had a client who wouldn't go for a promotion in work because she was thinking she wasn't smart enough to do the job, and it stemmed back to childhood. Like in secondary school, she was going to do. We have a leaving certificate, so I'm not sure what the equivalent is, but it's basically your last exams in school, and she wanted to do the higher level, but the teacher actually told her no, I don't think you should do the higher level. I think you should drop down to ordinary level. That's probably more in your capabilities. And from that moment, that's where like she carried that through up until that session that she wasn't clever enough, she wasn't smart enough. It held her back in so many aspects of her life. For a flippant comment, like so flippant in the moment, the teacher was just, they probably can't even manage how many students are in the class. They're just like bang, bang, bang. And that literally shaped her whole like professional career because she didn't think she was capable of pushing herself a little bit further because somebody back then told her she was not smart enough to go and do what she wanted to do.
That's incredible. So, everyone listening
Hmm.
and watching, perhaps the first thing you can do is think back. Was there a
Yeah.
situation like that for yourself where you were told something that you believed, which in fact may not have been true, but you made it so, and you carry that with you your entire
Yeah.
life?
You don't even know it's happening sometimes. It's a great technique that we use. It's an NLP technique. It's a timeline thing where you kind of visualize and you go back in time to when your first memory of when you felt that way, and
Mhm.
you can kind of change the course of how it happened and then bring that new empowering belief back with you to this present moment and rewiring basically the brain to say that was wrong, this is right now, this is, and you kind of go through your whole past and say how things could have been different, but now going forward I'm bringing this with me and I can do what I want to do. It's
Mhm.
it's really, really powerful.
Amazing. So all the rewiring, the reprogramming, the mindset shifting, the reframing applies to guilt as well, because it's
Yeah,
all in
100%.
your head. It's all
Yeah,
based on your thoughts. So they can
yeah.
all be treated in the same way when you're looking to shift your thoughts.
Exactly. Because the guilt is one thing, but where is that guilt coming from? It's coming from somewhere, Sabrina. Like
Mm,
the guilt wouldn't be there if we were living like authentically to our values, to everything else that if we were aligned, we were happy and it wouldn't exist. So there's an underlying of something else that's causing that guilt.
interesting. Let's talk about this more. I like this. So
This is
yes.
my, this is what I feel anyway, because like I'll use mine as a reference when I was 30 and like when I was like thinking about the children's situation. I was feeling guilty for not giving my parents a grandchild from me. But in that moment, now, like with everything that I've learned and looked at, for me, I was single. I was thinking, I'm never going to actually meet somebody to get pregnant, to have a child, to have that family. So for me, I wasn't in a place where I could feel like I could have all those things. So that's where that guilt came from for me because it didn't feel achievable.
That makes sense.
You
Yeah.
That's, yeah, that would be my perception of it. And that's what I feel like. So the guilt is just another tool to kind of beat ourselves up for the other stuff that's going on.
Hmm. Which leads me to reflect on an example of, let's say, success. Some of us hold back on our potential to be successful because there's
Mhm.
guilt there that we are going to be perceived in a certain way. Let's say we become successful. I've heard on numerous occasions that there's fear in success because your life's going to change. Maybe you've grown up with people talking about the level of success as something that is unattainable or negative, and so, by you wanting to step into that level of success, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, but what is my family going to think? Because I know what they believe to be true about the level of success. So, I'm going to continue to play small so I could not ruffle any feathers and I could please them and not be judged,
Hmm.
kind of thing.
I see. Yeah, I understand that. My brain went somewhere else when you mentioned success, though, because
Yes. Tell me.
I feel like the guilt comes from, I don't know whether this is like a cultural thing or whether this is something that you can relate to. But, being too big for your boots or like showing off or like being that person, even sometimes when we get those wins, we're afraid to like be so excited or share,
Oh,
like shout it from the rooftop because fear of making someone else feel bad. So then the guilt is there. I don't want to make somebody feel bad because I feel good. You know, that's where I went when you said success and guilt. That's what comes to mind for me, But I see where you're coming from. And I think the fear of success is very much in line with the fear of failure. They're so close together
absolutely.
that you're afraid to go for success in case you fail, And sometimes when again, like in certain families, success is expected and you're constantly fearing that you're not going to live up to expectations. So the guilt is always there because in our heads, we make it unachievable because
Mhm.
we can't meet an expectation that we don't actually put in place. It's just this, I don't know how to say this, but it's just something that's there that you're never going to reach because it's not measurable, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Which then goes back to damned if you do, damned if you don't, because we just
Yeah.
outlined so many different perspectives. So, depending on the person, you're going to approach this fear or this guilt in a different way. So, for the one who's striving for success versus the one who's scared or the one who, I mean, there's so many different ways to think about it. And that's why I love doing the show because we offer those different perspectives. But it sounds
Mhm.
like no matter what, we're setting ourselves up for a guilt trap.
100%, because as I said previously, the guilt is there to hide something else. So unless the underlying issue is actually worked on and dealt with and broke down and dived into and disappears, it's always going to be there for it to because nothing's ever going to be good enough or successful enough or.
Yeah, it's true. So it is a work in progress. It's something that will take time, will take a
Yes.
lot of uncovering, which is something that you do with your clients. Is there
Yes.
something that we can do or implement or try to help us get through the upcoming holiday season, the new year? So, why I say holiday season is that if there's guilt around family, you're most likely seeing your family during the holiday season. So, maybe there's something that we could work on there. And the new year, there are expectations of like new year, new me, and like what are your goals? What is your vision board? Like there's so much happening January 1st. What are your New Year's resolutions, right? There's so many expectations that can maybe make us feel guilty if we don't want that, or if we don't follow through with it, or if we already start out to do a New Year's resolution and by day two, we don't keep it up. And then there's guilt because you failed, quote unquote. So,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I actually done a reel on this the other day. I actually seen somebody post it and just done a little variation of it. But I mean, there's only a few weeks left of this year, and you're going to see a lot of people celebrating their achievements, showing their highlights for the year. And I wanted to really, really underline that it's been a tough year for everybody, and everybody has their own struggles. And as I said previously, social media only share the best things, the best bits. So if all you done this year was survive it, that is an achievement.
mhm.
Because I know people have been through so much, and some days you probably didn't even want to get out of the bed in the morning. Like that's achievement if you got out of that bed, little things like that. we put our face on and people don't know what we're going through day to day. So I think letting ourselves off the hook is something that I really, really self-compassion is a huge thing and it's so underrated and it takes so little time to do. What I always say to my clients and friends and people in general, like I always say, are you speaking to your best friend the way you're speaking to yourself? And the answer is always no, because we're always mean to ourselves, but we wouldn't go and say that to somebody else. I know it's kind of like reframe, but it's flipping the script. And basically, when you catch yourself in that talk of negative self-talk or like guilt or anything around it, awareness is key. Catch it straight away. Just flip it. Like, as I said, I'm so behind. Like, this is probably something that's going to come up. Like, I'm so behind. Didn't get to where I wanted to get. The new year's coming in. I'm really going to try next year. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. The 1st of January is a date, as well as the 2nd of January and the 20th of November. They're one day. Like, if you want to work on yourself, start tomorrow, start now. What's one thing you can go away now and do for yourself to make yourself feel better going into the new year? But that reframe of I'm so behind, try say to yourself, I'm building the life I want at my own pace. It sounds really simple, but it's super effective and super powerful. And you'll step into your own power and you'll feel empowered once you start believing that. And mirror work is really good, Sabrina. Like saying it to yourself in the mirror. Affirmations are great to say out loud, but if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say those, and as I said, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel a bit cringy or a bit icky the first couple of times you do it. Continue with it. It gets easier. It feels better. And like in the morning time, like how much nicer would it feel rather than when you're doing your makeup or getting dressed and you're telling yourself some horrible things in the mirror. You're actually telling yourself how beautiful you are, how on track you are, and how good enough you are, and how you're going to have a great day. Even just saying that makes me smile because it's something that really is so small but has such a big impact.
I love it. Thank you, Philomena. Yes.
Well, sorry, I got very passionate there.
Yes, I love it. I just let you go because that was beautiful and so inspiring and so helpful. I think, it sounds simple, but like you said, the effect that it can have can be so powerful. And it really goes back to how we talk to ourselves, the thoughts that are in
Mhm.
our minds. And I love the idea of even comparing it to, would you speak to your best friend the way you speak to yourself? Would you speak to your family member, somebody you love? Coming back to self-love and compassion. Yes, all of
Mhm.
those things. Yes, thank you. So tell us, how can we work with you? How can we reach you?
So you can book a discovery call. I'm actually giving three free, thank you, Sabrina, three free discovery calls away for your listeners.
Thank
So it's an
you.
hour call. We'll do a little mini coaching session. We'll discuss the program. It's bespoke. It's standard, but bespoke to everyone for what they need. So we kind of go through a lot of stuff like lifestyle design, reframe work, visualization, lots of NLP techniques in there, some habit trackers. There's a lot in it over the 12 weeks. It's broken down into phases, so it's doable. And I'm there obviously, and we're working one-on-one together, and it's amazing. The transformation is just it melts my heart every time. So I love it, and I love the journey that people go on. They come and speak to you about one thing, but the whole thing that unravels after is incredible. So I have a website. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook. I have a free Facebook community group as well. I do live training in there and have some free guest speakers in there as well. So feel free to join that as well. And yeah, that's me.
Amazing. I'll put all the information in the show notes and everyone claim your spot. 3 spots. Thank you for your generosity, Philomena. Three
No
spots.
problem.
Are you going to claim yours? Will you be the lucky one to work with Philomena? Oh, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. Wonderful to meet you, to share this important topic with you. And thank you for all the work that you do because it's so needed.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. The time's gone so quickly. I could speak about that forever.
Yes, I know. Definitely. But I think we touched on exactly what we needed to. And hopefully, everyone listening and watching, you got exactly what you needed as well.